The Supreme Court has upended U.S. trade policy, striking down sweeping tariffs in a landmark August 2025 decision. The case challenged tariffs imposed by the executive branch, arguing they bypassed Congress's authority. The court's ruling reasserts Congress's primary role in setting tariffs, curbing presidential power in trade. This decision impacts industries nationwide, from Ohio factories to California ports. The ruling sets the stage for a fundamental rethinking of U.S. trade for years to come. The future of American trade is now in Congress's hands. Tariffs are taxes on imports, used to protect domestic industries and raise government revenue. By making foreign goods pricier, tariffs encourage buying American-made products. Tariffs are also diplomatic tools, used in negotiations or to pressure other countries. Congress sets tariffs, but has given some power to the president for flexibility. Tariffs raise costs for importers, manufacturers, and ultimately, consumers. Now, the Supreme Court's decision shifts tariff power back to Congress. The next chapter in American trade policy is about to be written. The Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling focused on the separation of powers, not the merits of tariffs themselves. The majority found that the president's broad, indefinite tariffs exceeded the authority Congress had delegated. At the heart was the non-delegation doctrine. Congress can't give away its core legislative responsibilities. The court said laws like Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act were stretched too far. National security was used as a catch-all for economic policy. Only targeted, verifiable threats justify executive action. Sweeping tariffs on entire industries must come from Congress. The decision draws a clear line. General economic regulations require legislative approval. Dissenting justices warned this limits the president's ability to respond to global threats, arguing economic security is national security. They cited decades of precedent allowing broad presidential authority in foreign affairs. The dissent fears gridlock and slow responses to economic crises. The majority, however, insists that accountability and constitutional order must come first. This ruling narrows executive power and demands a more precise definition of national security in trade. The debate over how much power the president should have in trade is far from settled. The decision sets a new standard for future trade actions. The economic impact of the now reversed tariffs is mixed and contentious. Protected industries like steel saw modest job gains and increased production, but these benefits were limited to specific regions. Meanwhile, industries relying on tariffed goods, like auto and machinery manufacturers, faced higher costs, lower profits, and sometimes layoffs. Studies found the overall effect on U.S. GDP was slightly negative. For consumers, research showed tariffs raised prices on everyday goods, costing the average household hundreds of dollars a year. The burden fell hardest on lower-income families, acting as a regressive tax. Internationally, trading partners retaliated with their own tariffs, targeting American exports like soybeans and pork. U.S. farmers suffered sharp export declines, relying on federal aid to stay afloat. The tariff wars disrupted supply chains and created global uncertainty. The data reveals a complex reality. Tariffs helped some, hurt many, and sparked international backlash. The Supreme Court's decision aims to prevent such broad, unilateral actions in the future. The challenge now is crafting trade policy that balances protection with broader economic health. The lessons of the tariff era will shape future debates. The numbers tell a story of winners, losers, and unintended consequences. The Supreme Court's decision triggered strong reactions in Washington and the business world. The White House condemned the ruling, while business leaders in retail, tech, and manufacturing welcomed it, hoping for lower costs and more predictable trade. In Congress, responses split along party lines, some decrying judicial overreach, others praising the return of constitutional order. But executives in protected industries like steel warned of renewed threats from foreign competition. The future of U.S. trade protection is uncertain. The Supreme Court's decision made headlines worldwide, greeted with cautious relief by U.S. trading partners. The European Union called it a step toward easing trade tensions and restoring a rules-based system. Canada and Mexico, hit by U.S. tariffs despite close ties, welcomed the ruling and hoped for more stable trade under the USMCA. Canadian officials said tariffs on allies were never justified. Now, they expect a reset in relations. China's response was measured, reiterating its view that U.S. tariffs violated WTO rules and expressing hope for renewed dialogue. The ruling removes a major point of contention, but deep economic rivalry with China remains. For the global trading system, the decision is seen as a boost for multilateralism and predictability. The World Trade Organization and trade experts hope this signals a return to established dispute processes. Still, the long-term impact depends on how Congress and the White House respond. International partners are watching for signs of a more collaborative U.S. approach. The decision could mark a turning point in global trade relations. The world awaits America's next move. The path forward is uncertain but potentially more stable. For American workers, tariffs have meant jobs for some and hardship for others. In the Midwest, steel and aluminum tariffs revived shuttered mills and brought hope. But now, workers fear renewed foreign competition after the court's decision. In other sectors, like auto and appliance manufacturing, tariffs raised costs, leading to layoffs and stalled growth. Many workers in these industries welcome the ruling, hoping for lower costs and job security. The decision exposes deep divides within American manufacturing. One worker's gain is another's loss. Farmers were hit hard by retaliatory tariffs, losing export markets and relying on federal aid. For them, the reversal brings hope of regaining lost customers abroad. Labor unions are split. Steelworkers defend tariffs as job savers, while unions in other sectors blame them for supply chain chaos. There's no single worker's perspective, just a web of competing interests. The ruling forces a reckoning with the real-world impact of trade policy. Communities across the country are bracing for change. The debate over protection versus open markets is personal and ongoing. The future for American workers remains uncertain. The Supreme Court's decision shifts trade power from the White House back to Congress. Presidents can no longer act unilaterally on sweeping trade measures. Future actions will require explicit congressional approval. This change means more public debate and consensus building, but also risks legislative gridlock. A slower, more deliberative process could make U.S. trade policy less nimble in a fast-moving world. Yet, policies forged in Congress may be more stable and predictable, giving businesses and partners long-term certainty. The focus now turns to lawmakers. Will they grant the president new, clearly defined trade powers, or reclaim authority for themselves? The debate will shape the tools available for future trade disputes and negotiations. Congress may create faster-track mechanisms or set stricter criteria for executive action. The path chosen will define U.S. trade for a generation. The stakes include jobs, economic growth, and America's global influence. The next moves in Congress will set the tone for years to come. The future of U.S. trade is being rewritten in real time. The Supreme Court's ruling marks a turning point for U.S. trade policy and constitutional balance. The decision wasn't about protectionism or free trade, but about restoring Congress's authority over tariffs. By narrowing the president's power, the court has redrawn the boundaries of executive action in the economy. The fallout is immediate. Some industries lose protection, others gain relief, and consumers may see lower prices. Internationally, the move is welcomed as a step towards stability and cooperation. The real shift is in who sets trade policy. Congress now holds the reins. The coming debate will balance presidential flexibility with legislative oversight and domestic protection with global engagement. The outcome will shape jobs, growth, and America's role in the world. The U.S. stands at a crossroads. The era of unilateral trade action is over. The next chapter will be written through debate, compromise, and new laws. The choices made now will echo for decades. As the nation adapts, the central question remains: how will America balance its interests at home with its responsibilities abroad? The answer will define the future of U.S. trade.